Hello and welcome to Ascending Order with me, Basil Valentine. Today, Monday, the 22nd of September, 2025. Special program today. I'm delighted to say I will be joined at 1:30 in 30 minutes' time by Professor Kamel Hawwash, distinguished Professor of Engineering from the University of Manchester, also former head of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. I'll be asking him, of course, about the significance of the United Kingdom yesterday deciding to recognize Palestine as a state, some 108 years too late. And will it make any difference to the facts on the ground while the evisceration of Palestine and genocide of Palestinians continue? Of course, it was only a couple of weeks ago, in his last disgraceful act of his abysmal tenure as Foreign Secretary, that David Lammy decided there was no genocide in Gaza, in spite of the fact that 680,000 people have been slaughtered. We'll return to that in a moment. Plus, of course, the carnival that the Charlie Kirk memorial turned into, Donald Trump making some bizarre remarks about how tariffs are making America richer than anybody could have imagined, and Tucker Carlson with some rather more pointed comments, drawing a parallel between Charlie Kirk's assassination and that of our dear Lord Jesus Christ, both executed for speaking truth to power. But first, let's give the floor on this historic occasion to the newly minted UK ambassador from Palestine, Hussam Zomlot. Here is his statement.
We welcome today the United Kingdom's formal recognition of the State of Palestine. This moment carries profound meaning because of Britain's role in the historic injustice against our people. 108 years after the Balfour Declaration and the denial of our right to self-determination, and 77 years after the Nakba, today Britain takes an irreversible step to right the wrongs of the past, recognizing Palestine as a state with equal rights and sovereignty. This moment comes as a genocide is being waged against our people in full view of the world, as we are mass murdered, starved, and displaced, as the remainder of the Gaza Strip is erased, while in the West Bank we face ethnic cleansing, settler terrorism, and the theft of our land. And yet, today marks a step forward, a step towards ending the genocide, a step towards justice and accountability, a step towards peace and stability. This act of recognition does not end our struggle, nor does it bring back the lives we have lost, but it affirms what we have always known, that Palestine cannot be denied, that our cause is just, that our people will endure. Today marks a long overdue acknowledgement of our inalienable right to self-determination, freedom, independence, and safety in our homeland. It is a realization that peace can only come when Palestine is free, when justice is delivered, and when our people's rights are upheld. So let this recognition now serve as a call to action towards ending an era of impunity, upholding the law, and enforcing accountability, including full sanctions on the entire ecosystem of the colonial occupation and oppression. Because let me remind you that however long it takes, however heavy the cost, the wheels of history turn always towards justice, freedom, and the sanctity and dignity of human life. Soon, this mission, this building, will formally become the embassy of the State of Palestine, and the Palestinian flag will fly proudly over the skies of London. To the people of Britain, who stood firm, who built the largest and longest protest movement for Palestine in the history of this country, who turned London into the epicenter of this global movement, to the UK Parliament and the hundreds of MPs who raised their hands and voices for Palestine, to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, who always took a principled position, to the trade unions, to civil society, and to all those who made this moment possible, I say, on behalf of the Palestinian leadership and people, thank you. We will always remember how you stood by our side, on the right side of history. To our people in Gaza, in Jerusalem, in Jenin, across our homeland, in the refugee camps and diaspora, this moment is yours. It is the fruit of more than 100 years of struggle, steadfastness, and love of our homeland. It is because of you that the denial of the Palestinian people's existence ends today. It is because of you that historic wrongs are being righted. And it is because of you that the state of Palestine is being recognized. It will rise on the land of Palestine, on the sacrifices of our great nation, on the shoulders of our ancestors. On that land, our land, we will remain and we will thrive. Thank you.
I sincerely hope he's right about the arc of history being towards justice. A long way to go on that score. And it seems for all their recognition, the United Kingdom government still have a desperately colonial attitude towards Palestine. Starmer himself talked about a viable Palestine state next to safe and secure Israel, nothing about Palestine being safe and secure. And the Foreign Office Minister made really disgraceful remarks trying to dictate exactly what the Palestinian state is supposed to look like, as we can hear now on Sky News.
The president of the Palestinian Authority has agreed a Palestinian state should be demilitarized. No army, no air force. It should pose no threat to the Israelis, with whom it should live in peace.
I mean, where do they get these people? Which side is committing genocide? Which side, therefore, needs to be demilitarized? Which side has this total annihilation policy? Let's hear from the member of the Knesset, Moshe Saad, who's a member of the governing Likud party, speaking on Israeli television.
כרגע מה שחשוב, אמרתי, הכרעה, השמדה, הגירה. זה בקונצנזוס. אני לא מכיר כמעט חוץ מה...
אמרת גם את המילה כיבוש.
מה? אז אני אומר, זה...
זה לא כיבוש, זה חזרה, אבל...
לא, בסדר. צריך לכבוש מחדש את השטח. מה לעשות? היום הוא כבוש. וצריך לכבוש. וצריך שלטון צבאי.
לא כבוש, אתם מסרתם אותו, מה כבוש?
אני אומר, זה תהליך. אנחנו נאגר אותם, האנשים האלו הם לא פליטים מגוש קטיף. האנשים האלה פליטים מיפו, מלוד, מרמלה, פה, לא רחוק. צריך לאגר אותם, לשקם אותם במדינות אחרות, ואז השטח יהפוך לגן פורח, משגשג, אין לי ספק.
Open calls for ethnic cleansing there, and he reiterates this repeatedly. I mean, it's the official Israeli policy, and in terms of the facts on the ground, it's official US and UK policy. Even Melanie Phillips, the most repulsive, well, one of the most repulsive Zionists in Britain, tweeted yesterday, where is this Palestinian state? Is it in the entirety of the West Bank and Gaza, according to the 1967 borders? The UK really is recognizing a charade, unless it's prepared to do something to stop the genocide. But Israeli ministers, and here is Gila Gamliel, are heading in the precise opposite direction.
במודל העסקי מה שיהיה שהרצועה הזאת בסופו של יום לא יהיה במקור לשערות והתכנות של מגורים. אני אומר לך שאני אפילו אופטימית שזה יקרה גם מיהודה ושומרון ולא רק מרצועת עזה. אז רגע, שנייה לפני זה. גם מיהודה ושומרון זה אפשרי להגיע להגירה משמעותית? אני אמרתי שמבחינתי כן.
Significant immigration from what she refers to as Judea and Samaria, what the rest of us call the West Bank, is another open call for ethnic cleansing. Some 5 million Palestinians live in the West Bank, and they're very open now about the fact they want to steal it all. Right, we're going to take a quick pivot away from Palestine for the moment, although I'll be returning to the subject with my special guest, Professor Kamel Hawwash, for the second half of the program. But next, the carnival that took place to commemorate the death of Charlie Kirk. That's the best way of describing it. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, virtually the entire Trump cabinet were there. Let's get a breakdown of what happened first from Al Jazeera.
It was one part revival meeting,
so I throw my head, praise you.
One part political rally,
This is Erica Kirk.
And one part celebration of life for a fallen martyr to the conservative cause.
Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
The Super Bowl-sized memorial service for conservative icon Charlie Kirk had the feel of a state funeral. The corridors of conservative power in Washington were largely empty, transported for a day to State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona.
Please welcome to the stage Secretary Marco Rubio.
The roster of speakers included much of the presidential cabinet, Vice President J.D. Vance, and was headlined by President Donald Trump.
Charlie has been reunited with his Creator in heaven. His voice on earth will echo through the generations.
A capacity crowd of tens of thousands lined up in the pre-dawn hours to honor the man many credit with putting Donald Trump in office with the votes of young conservatives.
He really was the first person to reach out to the youth in the conservative movement. He made conservatism cool again.
Alyssa Grover attended the Utah University appearance where Kirk was shot.
When I heard the bullet, I turned my head and everyone got down, and we were down for like maybe 30 seconds-ish, and then everyone started running.
That experience led her to join the throngs in Arizona. Charlie Kirk was a polarizing figure. He had controversial views on gays, on abortion, on immigrants, on minorities. But those views aren't controversial here. His assassination has united conservatives behind him in death. Kirk's death has launched a debate over the Trump administration's promise to crack down on liberal voices the president accuses of fomenting leftist violence. To the thousands inside and outside of State Farm Stadium who formed the cult of Kirk, he is the personification of free speech. To the administration he served, Kirk's lasting legacy may well be to serve as a justification for a government campaign to suppress it. John Hendren, Al Jazeera, Glendale, Arizona.
Don't miss out and get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.
And thank you to Al Jazeera, who got a little commercial in for themselves there at the end for that report. Donald Trump's speech at the Kirk Memorial was typically crass. He managed to make it all about himself and his own achievements. Worth pointing out, too, that Erica Kirk was wearing white, not black, and Kirk's body was carried by a white hearse. A lot of people questioning the symbolism of that. And indeed, of course, there remain many questions about who actually killed him as well. Tucker Carlson took to the stage. He was very close to Charlie Kirk, and he made some rather pointed remarks, drawing parallels between the death of Kirk and Jesus Christ himself.
Ultimately, he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us. We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea, why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem. It doesn't work that way.
No, it certainly doesn't. But there's no doubt Kirk was a unique voice. All the speculation about was he about to turn on Israel? Did they play a part in his assassination? We don't have any firm evidence, although lots of circumstantial evidence. And besides, would you really expect to see it on the BBC News at 10 or CBS Evening News that the smoking gun had been found linking Israel to the Kirk assassination? Right, so we're going to take a look now at one or two stories on social media from here in the UK and the dangers of misrepresentation. First of all, it's been doing the rounds, went pretty much viral, a story about two police officers turning up to the door of a teenage girl because she had liked a tweet that she shouldn't have liked. Basically, the sort of thought crime, which has been very much a talking point in Britain in recent days. First of all, here's the clip that's been doing the rounds on X.
Okay, what was it?
Sorry, I don't like the camera. You can have my body cam. I can exhibit that to you. I just don't like the camera, really.
Okay, well, I'm doing this because this is my own house and I am telling you why I'm doing it. So I just need to know why would she's basically viewed a post which is not an arrestable offence.
Viewed an offence, that's been.
Okay.
It happened in May and you're completely fine. The only thing is we need to seize the phone at this current moment. The phone needs to get seized from us, otherwise we will escalate this further. So,
but with a voluntary interview.
So have you seized anyone else? Is she the only child you're picking on?
Voluntary interview, you'd be able to come.
Have you spoken to anyone else? No, we'll come to the station now.
Do you mind letting her finish her sentence before?
Yeah.
It does have to get further escalation, unfortunately.
That's fine. We'll come to the station now.
The phone isn't seized right now, and we're not able to basically get the phone. We'd have to escalate this further, which means your daughter will get arrested.
For what? Viewing a social media post? Is that?
I need to go with that in order to.
No, absolutely not.
What can we do to prevent destruction of evidence?
I'm sorry.
Lisa.
That's fine. I would like you to leave now. I'd like you to leave.
This is why you're
okay. I have nothing more to say to you. A social media post. I've got nothing more to say. I'd like you to leave. You've harassed this child enough. I'd like you to leave.
Lisa, that's no worries.
Now, it turns out that the girl in question had done a lot more than simply view a social media post. She had, in fact, created an entirely imaginary profile and was harassing others online via this fake profile. Similar story with a post about a boy supposedly being arrested for displaying an England flag. Here's the clip that's been doing the rounds.
Necessity for the arrest, so we can have a prompt investigation, okay? So at this stage,
I just come out with Nana.
you're going to be handcuffed.
Nana, no, just come out. Just come out with
Just do the favour, just turn to the back, we handcuff you to the back.
Come out with Nana.
Have arrested. Go in.
Doing what?
Lovely, thank you very much.
I just come out with Nana. What
Right,
are you doing that for in the car?
They've both been arrested, okay? They've been identified as being responsible. Just do the favour, love. They've been identified as being responsible in that incident, okay? So at the moment, they've just been arrested on suspicion, okay?
Oh, well, we know who the aggressor is then, don't we?
Okay, so we'll do an investigation.
No
comment there, you don't know nothing, you won't get stored, you're
Whilst we're at the police station, you have certain rights. Okay, you've got the right to speak with an independent solicitor free of charge at any time. You understand that?
Yeah.
And you've never been fucked.
Yeah.
Alright, you can have somebody tell that you're here, you will tell your mum that you're here. Okay? And also you can look at our codes of practice, government police powers and procedures. That's our book which explains all your rights in the police station.
Absolutely terrible, doesn't it? Young boy there being hauled into a police station for displaying an England flag. In fact, the story's nothing of the kind. That clip comes from a documentary called Traffic Cops, and the boy was being arrested for apparently stealing a pair of boots from a delivery van. But people are determined to foment social unrest in Britain. As I say, that clip is being presented as an incident that had occurred within the last few days, and that the boy was being arrested simply for putting up a cross of St. George, red cross on the white background. Nothing of the kind, of course. Now, another issue, which I'm afraid isn't going to go away, not in the short term anyway, and is going to be the fight of our lives here in the United Kingdom. I'm talking, of course, about the digital ID system. We're all used to QR codes these days. I don't mind a QR code as an alternative to a physical printed ticket, so long as you've got the plenty of charge in your phone, and of course you've got the signal so you can load it. I've had a few moments, perhaps you have as well, where the QR code is suddenly demanded, but if you're out of signal area, it can be difficult to produce it on your phone in the moment. Well, this authoritarian Labour government want to introduce something similar for all of us, masquerading, of course, as somehow something to do with stopping illegal migration. Of course, the two things are absolutely nothing to do with each other. Let's not forget that just over 20 years ago, Tony Blair wanted to bring in ID cards. Boris Johnson, in opposition at the time, was one of those most vocal in his condemnation of the idea. We're not a papers, please, at every street corner kind of country, but it seems a renewed push is coming. And who will be in charge of it? Well, Peter Thiel at Palantir, possibly Larry Ellison at Oracle, mega billionaires. Ellison recently highlighted as possibly the richest man on the planet, $300 billion to the good. And he wants to control your behavior with the help of this Labour government. These people were all at Windsor Castle last week enjoying dinner with government ministers. What's more, they're very open about their desire to control behavior via digital ID, as we can hear now from Ellison himself.
Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. And it's unimpeachable. The cars have cameras on them. I think we have a squad car here someplace. But those kind of applications using AI, if we can use AI, and we're using AI to monitor the video, by the way, and the camera's always on. You don't turn it on and off. And by the way you turn it on, you can't turn it on. I'm going to the bathroom. Oracle, I need 2 minutes to take a bathroom break, and we'll turn it off. The truth is, we don't really turn it off. What we do is we record it so no one can see it, but no one can get into that recording without a court order.
Who are these people and what gives them the right to snoop on us like this? Well, the British government, Liz Kendall last week said that if you don't produce your digital ID, you may be denied benefits, you may be denied access to certain public places, you might find it very difficult to travel. This must be resisted at all costs. And I'm pleased to say that there seems to be an alliance of libertarians from both left and right. Reform are opposed to this, from what I can tell. And so are most of the genuine left-leaning parties. Not sure where the Liberal Democrats stand, but the great majority of British people have no interest in being digital ID'd and required to produce some form of identification within the borders of the United Kingdom of Great Britain of Northern Ireland for any purpose whatsoever, unless demanded so by the police. So I hope and believe that just as the last attempt to bring this in the early 2000s was successfully kicked into touch, we will do so again. Keep an eye on Together, the organization which arose during the COVID farrago to push back against the QR codes that were being introduced. Then, of course, remember, they had another go then, didn't they? You have to produce a QR code to get into a restaurant, all that track and trace business. My goodness, that's all been forgotten, hasn't it? How much was spent on track and trace? £34 billion. Where have we seen the receipts? Anyway, in a few minutes, I will be joined by Professor Kamel Hawwash, former chairman of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign, distinguished academic and one of Britain's leading voices for the Palestinian cause. But first, let's get this summary report on the UK's recognition of Palestine from GB News.
But that doesn't mean it's a useless gesture. It means that Israel is increasingly isolated on the world stage. It means that there is increasing pressure on Israel to actually do something to stop its barbaric onslaught against the Palestinians in Gaza. And also, we have to point out that Sama has been quite clear that Hamas is not going to be a part of any future Palestinian state. And as I said to you already, the West Bank is where the bulk of this Palestinian state is located. Hamas has nothing to do with the West Bank, and Israel is also attacking the people in the West Bank, taking de facto hostages, men and boys, and also Israeli settlers, fanatical Israeli settlers, are conducting what can only be called pogroms against Palestinian villages, and it has to stop.
All right, so how will Keir Starmer ensure that Hamas is not part of any Palestinian state? They're nice words, but how's he going to do that?
Well, Hamas is already not part of the governments of the vast bit of Palestinian territory, which is obviously being eroded month by month by the Israelis. But the vast bit of Palestinian territory is in the West Bank, and Hamas has no governance in the West Bank. And so obviously this is going to be part of a broader negotiation that Israel is going to have to engage with at some point with the Palestinians to kind of decide how we carve up this territory, how we negotiate this territory, because at the moment you have two bits of Palestinian territory which are separated by Israel, and you have an Israeli plan to annex all of Gaza. That cannot be a part of any kind of long-term solution either. But the point here is that you have a Palestinian state ready to go, in a sense, which is in the West Bank. You have a Palestinian government which is internationally recognized. They're not terrorists. They have regular dealings with all sort of countries in the world, pretty much. And this is the UK upgrading that relationship to a full state level, where we'll now open an embassy in, I presume, Ramallah, and that process can begin. And obviously, this is also a signal to Israel that Israel has to take things seriously, because at the moment this is just a diplomatic move, but there is a lot more pressure building as this genocide intensifies that Israel should also face sanctions. Whether that's not just in terms of arms sales, but also in terms of potential trade sanctions. That's being discussed now at the European Commission, and potential sort of more punishments to follow, with various Israeli ministers being sanctioned as well. Israel cannot continue in the way that it has been prosecuting this war. This war must end. This genocide must end.
Well said. This war must end. This genocide must end. I'm delighted to say I'm joined on ascending order here on Unprecedented TV for the first time by Professor Kamel Hawwash. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. It's a small step in the right direction, largely symbolic, won't necessarily alter things on the ground, but it's certainly irritating the Israelis. This is too little too late from Britain, but nevertheless, it's a welcome step, isn't it, Kamel?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the home of the Balfour Declaration, which actually decided that I'm a Palestinian. It decided that the Palestinians, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim, at the time of it, would be regarded, and they made up 94% of the population, that they would be non-Jewish communities, and that they would only have civil and religious rights. So when it now goes to a political angle, in other words, it's added the political rights to the civil and religious rights, it shows that now it's gone above the Balfour Declaration, but the Balfour Declaration is still a despicable document which gave away the homeland of the Palestinian people to a people who didn't come from that land, and a people who went on to expel 750,000, most of the Palestinian population, leaving only a couple of 100,000 in historic Palestine. So right from the outset, Britain not only did us a disservice as Palestinians, whereas the other countries like Jordan and Syria and Lebanon, etc., became independent countries, it made sure when it became the country that had the mandate on Palestine, to make sure that it was the Zionists who created the country and that the state, and the Palestinians were not able to do that because of the suppression of the British. So this is, yes, it's a small move today. It won't change much on the ground today, but in terms of this historical context, it's about time that Britain moved to support the Palestinian people.
It's been described by conservative commentators, Zionists in the UK, as a reward for terrorism, as a gift to Hamas. But the state of Israel was born out of terrorism, wasn't it? These people seem to forget that the Israeli Zionist terrorist groups, the Irgun, the Stern Gang, were adept at murdering British soldiers and even went as far as blowing up the King David Hotel in Jerusalem. Israel was born of terrorism, and indeed former Prime Minister Menachem Begin crowed about it. He liked to boast that Zionism was the father of terrorism in the whole world.
He was wanted by Britain, but he became a Prime Minister for Israel, which Britain continued to deal with, as did Menachem Begin. So this talk about terrorism is only because they know that in the current state of things around the Western world, people are obviously against terrorists. I understand that completely. However, what Israel is committing is very much in line with the definition of terrorism, that it is using violence to achieve, against civilians particularly, to achieve political aims. That's exactly what it's doing in Gaza. So Israel is a terrorist state. The IDF, which supposedly is the defense force for Israel, is actually the largest terrorist group in Israel, and it is funded by the United States. So these are the facts. I'm not trying to paint a picture which doesn't reflect what reality says is happening. So it is important that even the UK, which in my view made the mistake by prescribing both sides of Hamas, there was a political wing, still is, and it sits in Qatar and other places, and a military wing. The military wing, okay, the UK wants to prescribe it, fine. But the political wing, even Tony Blair met with Khalid Mish'al in Qatar. In other words, yes, you need to talk to your enemies or to the people that you dislike, but that is because you want to achieve a peaceful solution at the end of the day. But the other question we should ask this British government and other governments around the world, why on earth didn't you recognize Palestine before the 7th of October? It was your dithering, your support for Israel, which brought about the catastrophe that we've seen now in Gaza, because Israel has just completely demolished it and leveled buildings. It isn't just about a demolition of a building. They have leveled it. There are areas in Gaza which have absolutely no signs that we can recognize.
Absolutely, make very good points. Keir Starmer, of course, the recognition of Palestine continues what I consider to be the fiction of the two-state solution. He said that the hope of a two-state solution was fading, but that it must be kept alive. Well, I mean, the Israeli Knesset recently voted to rule out any question of a Palestinian state. Netanyahu has boasted about how he's been able to keep the creation of a Palestinian state at bay. Of course, after the Oslo Accords, which were themselves, I think, a tragic and strategic mistake by Palestinian leadership at the time. They were supposed to lead to the final agreement, weren't they? That never came about. Camp David at the end of the century there with Bill Clinton, all disintegrated. I don't want to give everybody a history lesson, but the two-state solution can come about. I'm not actually in favor of it. We'll come to that in a moment. But even if you are in favor of it, the only way it can come about is not through some sort of round table discussion, all playing nicey and land swaps and this sort of thing. It can only come about through extreme levels of diplomatic and economic pressure being applied to Israel. I mean, swinging economic sanctions, ambassadors sent home, isolation, the kind of thing that would have them all screaming about anti-Semitism, because there's no way they're going to move otherwise. So I'm not quite sure where this two-state solution that Keir Starmer, places on the horizon. It's been on the horizon for 70 years, and that horizon hasn't got any closer, Kamel.
Well, this is why I made my point that they should have recognized Palestine if they really believed in the two-state solution way before the 7th of October, because the Palestinians have rights like any other people. They have a right to self-determination. I will remind viewers that in 2018, Israel, the Knesset, passed a law that basically, what was called the nation-state law, that basically gave the right to self-determination only to Jews in Israel. And of course, Israel still hasn't defined its borders. So where does that extend to? So how can you give half the people who live on the land a right to self-determination, but you don't give the same thing to the other people? First of all, because you don't regard them as human beings, which is what some Israeli ministers said right at the outset of this attack on Gaza. But it also symbolizes what Zionism is about. Zionism isn't a peaceful ideology. It is a criminal, racist ideology. And it is what is driving this current government, because they believe that they have more rights in Palestine than the actual indigenous people, the Palestinian people. So the signs have never been pointing towards a peaceful resolution. Yes, the Oslo Accords showed you the extent to which the Palestinians went to try and get a peaceful settlement. But Israel has breached every aspect of the Oslo Agreement, as they have every aspect of the ceasefire agreement with Lebanon. They've occupied Syria. They just go on as if there is no accountability at all, and that there is no international law. International law and international humanitarian laws are very clear. And if states like the United Kingdom, if the United States, if others had enforced the existing law, we wouldn't be where we are now, and there would be a Palestinian state, because the Palestinians' right to self-determination, okay, at the moment the PLO says two states, but at the end of the day, what I think will happen if we have a peaceful partner in Israel is more of a confederation, more of a one state with Jordan confederation, more of a one state where people have equal rights. What's wrong with people having equal rights? The only people who are against that are Zionists.
Absolutely. I mean, in this day and age, it seems unconscionable to those of us living in Europe that you would not have a simple one person, one vote, equal rights for everybody over the whole of historic Palestine. But of course, the Israelis regard that as the end of their, well, frankly, we have to use the term, Kamel, Jewish supremacism, because that's what defines Zionism. That's what Zionism is. Now, at tremendous human cost, the latest estimates, academic estimates, are 680,000 Palestinians slaughtered in the current genocide, 350,000 of them children under 5. I mean, if that had happened in Israel, I mean, we endlessly hear about October the 7th and the fiction of the beheaded babies in ovens, or all the other outright lies that have been used to justify the slaughter of Palestinians. Imagine for a moment if 350,000 Israeli Jewish under 5s had been killed. People would be saying this is a second Holocaust. This is worse than the Bible and King Herod, but the demonization and dehumanization of Palestinians and the media's complicity in endlessly burying the story of their suffering downplaying it, ignoring it, pushing it down the news agenda, which they've done consistently for the last 2 years and continue to do to this day, is what has allowed this situation to deteriorate the way it has, Kamel.
I mean, first of all, as you know, the declared numbers by the Ministry of Health who have died are closer to 60,000. However, there are thousands, I'm sure, of Palestinians under the rubble. And there are thousands of Palestinians that will never be accounted for, because I hear that in the north in particular, not only have they demolished buildings, they have taken the sort of, for recycling in Israel, building materials, which include the bodies and the bones crushed, etc., of Palestinians there as well. So the numbers, I'm not going to get into the numbers, because we will eventually find out how many people have been killed, but these are the 60 to 70,000 is what is registered by the ministry in Gaza. But the point is that, yes, there is absolutely Jewish supremacy, and it isn't new. The fact that in Israel, they justify, just right from the outset, they just moved Jews who came from Europe into the homes of Palestinians after throwing them out, literally knocking on the door and telling them to leave. We hear stories of people in Jaffa, that Jewish immigrants who forced their way into Palestine, they were not invited. Initially, they were looked after by the Palestinians when they didn't realize that they just wanted to take the whole place over. But the point is, they went into the homes after the owners were thrown out and found the food was still warm, i.e. people were just living their normal life and cooking and preparing. So this is a real tragedy, a real injustice, and it just confirms that Zionism is a racist, murderous ideology. People say to me, but surely Zionism is about the right of the Jewish people to self-determination. That might be the case. It's the next bit that doesn't get referred to. It's the in Palestine. Who gave them any right to say they wanted to have a land, a country on another people's lands? I completely reject that as a reason. And this is why when you hear people ask politicians, are you a Zionist? They think, these politicians who really don't understand the history, that they're saying to them, do you think that Israel should exist? Well, of course, they think Israel should exist because they think, it is the right of the Jewish people to have a state. All right, but not in Palestine. Had they had it in Uganda, as I wrote many years ago, had Israel been created in Uganda, do they think that the Palestinians would have created Fatah and Hamas to go and fight Jews in Uganda? Of course not. This is all very much about the Palestinians wanting their rights, wanting their land back.
You rightly say, it is their land. In response to the governments of United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada recognizing a Palestinian state, Israel has decided it's going to steal more land in the West Bank. I mean, you would think, wouldn't you, that in any ordinary diplomatic situation that a development like that might cause them to come to the table to modify their position in a more moderate way, but quite the opposite. And of course, they're emboldened by this absolute nutcase Trump administration in this theft. We had this bizarre spectacle last week of the idiot Huckabee, United States ambassador to Israel, saying that Jews are God's chosen people and they're basically entitled to steal everything and killing everybody if they want to. I mean, it's Marco Rubio, exactly the same. Trump appears to have been bought wholesale for $100 million by Miriam Adelson. And although Americans are waking up, possibly including Charlie Kirk, to the historic injustices perpetrated on the Palestinian people, and indeed to the fact that their own government has been hijacked by Zionism, At the moment, unfortunately, the key players, the US in particular, are a long way away from where they were even under the Bush administration in the early part of this century. We've got a sort of the mentality of the Trump administration is aligned with the most extreme elements of what is the most extremist Israeli government in history, Kamel.
Well, first of all, I say to Huckabee and Rubio, if you think Jews are God's chosen people, these Zionists in Palestine are, give them your houses. Why don't you start there and say to them, when you come to the USA, you're very welcome. I'll go out and live in a tent while you exercise your supremacy in my home. That's first of all. Secondly, Huckabee himself. I mean, what a disgrace and a shame for the American people to have someone like him pretending to be an ambassador for the Americans in Israel when he's really an ambassador for Israel in Israel. That's what he is. And the previous one as well, I'm trying to remember his name, which will come to me. And it's really interesting that a lot of these ambassadors, after they finish their term, they remain in Israel. They live in Israel. But the reality is that Trump doesn't read. Okay, so he surrounds himself with people. He has surrounded himself with people who are all more Zionists than the Zionists in Israel. They're not Jewish, not all of them, but they are Christian Zionists who actually have been the torment of the Palestinians, if you like, because they say that Israel must be created, has been created. They have, as you know, their religious kind of. There will be a day when Jesus will return, but it's only when Israel is safe and secure and what have you. All of this is absolute. I mean, I don't want to call it lies because these are. It's all just.
Well, it's a mythology.
It's a mythology. Thank you. Yeah. So that can be and is challengeable. The problem is that we Palestinians are the people who are paying for it. Europe isn't paying for the Holocaust. America isn't paying for the Holocaust. It's only the Palestinian people who are paying for the Holocaust. And any pretense of anything else, that they have a right to the homeland of the Palestinians, is absolutely untrue. And I watched a Palestinian today talk about the recognition. He had a Palestinian map, and you know what the Palestinian map looks like. And he says, so now that recognition has happened of Gaza and the West Bank, how the heck can I have a map? You've got Gaza on one side, separated from the West Bank by Israel. What kind of map do we create that is what Britain has recognized? That's what he's saying. So, you know, this recognition issue, and I saw today the Palestinian ambassador raising the flag on what was the mission for Palestine, which, by the way, was a limited company. People don't know this. It wasn't even allowed to call itself an embassy or a mission or anything. But he's now raised the flag. There was a big turnout, particularly from what I could see were MPs, mainly Labour MPs, who came to celebrate with him. But then the next question that I also heard someone ask yesterday, will Britain have an ambassador to Palestine? And where will that ambassador reside? The British consulate is in East Jerusalem, and I've been to it. But of course, Israel is not going to allow that building to become an embassy. So then they will move. If they're going to have an embassy, they'll build it in Ramallah, which goes against the fact that where that consulate is illegally occupied territory. And any country that wants to have relations with Palestine, which should extend over at least the West Bank, Jerusalem, and Gaza, they should be able to have their embassies in East Jerusalem. So there are questions that come out now about what will this recognition mean. However, for me, I would have exchanged the end of the killing of the Palestinians in Gaza for the recognition. the recognition will not stop the killing, but that is what I and others have been fighting for, is an end to this absolute genocide. I mean, the fact that Britain didn't even have the I don't want to use the words to say it's a genocide, and for Britain to say
the gumption. I think the word you're looking for is gumption, the backbone, the integrity, Kamel. You know, the honesty.
Word, but I wouldn't say it on a transmission like this. So the point is, Britain still, even though it's recognized Palestine, doesn't think that Israel is committing a genocide, when even the United Nations Independent Commission says it's a genocide, when even Sadiq Khan yesterday or the day before said it is now a genocide. When you have countries like, lots of countries are now recognizing it as that. So recognition is one thing, but let's get to the point where Israel is punished just like South Africa was punished. South Africa was punished, boycotted culturally and sports-wise and so on, until it came to its senses. And who will ever forget that Nelson Mandela was seen as a terrorist by the UK? So all this talk about terrorism, you can only make peace with your enemies, even if you don't like them, even if you think they are terrorists. They are the people that you should be making peace with. Yes, of course, in Palestine, you should be looking to who can bring that about, rather than demonizing one side and saying the other side is faultless, really, because they have a right to self-defense. Israel has no right to self-defense in territories it occupies.
Well, absolutely, and it's long since gone past the self-defense. This is from Gaza this morning, another building destroyed, and once again the ground offensive in Gaza City, dozens of people killed every day, and the fact that it doesn't make the headlines is indicative of the extent to which Palestinians have been systematically dehumanized by both Israeli Hezbollah and a complicit media here in the West over several decades in the most appalling way. Moving forward, John Swinney, the leader of the SNP, was at the event. You referenced the opening of the Palestine embassy in London this morning. But the statements are all still very mild and milquetoast. He said, "I urge the government to take further action to accelerate peace, including continuing to call for an immediate ceasefire and the resumption of free-flowing aid. The international community must use all its energy to persuade and pressurize Israel to end the violence and return to a peace process. A two-state solution is the only option that can provide peace, prosperity, and security for both the state of Palestine and the state of Israel." This is absolutely delusional stuff. I mean, to unpick it, Kamel, first of all, what pressure exactly is he calling for? People have to be much more explicit. They need to talk about swinging economic, diplomatic sanctions, isolation. The Israeli embassy should be closed in London, the ambassador sent home. Likewise, we should close our embassy. I mean, if any other country had slaughtered 680,000 of its neighbors' inhabitants in a genocide, there would be no equivocation at all. But secondly, once again, this fiction of the two-state solution. In what universe should a regime that has, as I say, murdered 350,000 under fives of its neighbor be allowed to continue? We heard earlier in the program from a Foreign Office minister saying that, Palestine must be demilitarized and pose no threat to Israel. I mean, have these people got eyes and ears in their head? It's Israel that's committing the mass slaughter. It's Israel that needs to be demilitarized and, in my view, dismantled. How can the world continue with a country in its midst that sees to expand its borders relentlessly and bomb its neighbors with impunity? Lebanon bombed again recently. I don't have the pictures. Civilians in southern Lebanon villages, women, children murdered, in the last week or so. Syria, Yemen, they bomb anybody they can and think they can get away with it. We've got the flashpoint coming up, of course, of the Gaza aid flotilla, which will be in international waters in just a few days' time. But please help me unpick some of those talking points, Kamel.
Well, first of all, sorry, I will go back to the numbers. I must say, I only go by what the Ministry of Health says at the moment. We will uncover the numbers, sometime in the future. I also wanted, although that doesn't unpick what you the things that you said, I want to mention the Palestinian journalists in Gaza, because there are about 200 that have been killed deliberately by Israel. Whatever Israel says, they don't kill people without meaning to do it. I met Wael al-Dahdouh in London last week. He was one of the journalists whose family was killed, his son, his wife, his grandsons, and so on. He was then attacked. His cameraman was killed, but he survived and is being treated for his severe injuries, particularly on his right hand in Qatar. If it wasn't for these brave Palestinians, we wouldn't have seen the pictures. And Israel would have said, no, we're not doing anything. We're not leveling Gaza to the ground. We're just attacking Hamas. So it's important to always remember these brave, brave, brave people, many of whom have paid the ultimate price for trying to tell us what was happening. And they were not Hamas. They were independent journalists that were trying to bring this to us. In terms of trying to unpick where we are, first of all, no country should have any relations with Israel. No country. You cannot have relations with a country that carries out a genocide, that kills the children in the way that it does, that uses the weapons of starvation, but also a new weapon, in my view, the weapon of lying, because they lie about everything. And for Britain to say they recognize Palestine, but Israel is still an ally. I mean, just think about that. If this is the kind of ally our governments have, then it is shameful on Britain. It brings absolute shame that they say that Israel is an ally. And to a certain extent, America, with what it does in supporting this slaughter, with weapons, with money, with political support, how is it that America vetoed a resolution again, which was only calling for a ceasefire, because they didn't like the words? So they want Israel to write the words, and then for others to agree to them. Well, that's not going to happen, because people see what Israel is about, as we discussed earlier on. So where we are now is we need those countries that have recognized Palestine, that are hefty, weighty countries. Let's be clear. Up to now, yes, 140 or so countries recognized Palestine, but amongst them there weren't many there were none on the Security Council. Now there are quite a few. I think there are now 3, and then maybe with France it becomes 4. All of these countries should now move to the next stage. Now, what is that? First of all, the Saudis and the French have come up with this conference on the 2 states that has a roadmap. Well, okay, go and implement it. I know people will say that the 2-state solution is dead. And as someone who visits and sees for myself, it is dead. The only way it will happen, even as a 2-state solution, is if the war criminal settlers are thrown out of the West Bank and East Jerusalem. That's the only way it will happen. But these countries will continue to talk about 2 states, even though Israel will not allow that to happen. And for as long as America vetoes, as long as there is no what they call Chapter 7 resolution, which would allow the use of force against Israel, Israel will not stop. However, I wrote an article which looked at the first Prime Minister of Israel, Ben-Gurion. I said, his what he left as his legacy was Israel's creation. Netanyahu thinks he's leaving as his legacy Israel's security, but I think it will be its complete isolation.
And I hope and believe you're right, Kamel. We've got the United Nations General Assembly coming up. I expect to see some fireworks there, but will any kind of peace process come out of it? That's the question. I mean, the way the United States is acting at the moment, it's pretty much abandoned its long-held 2-state solution policy. We don't really know what official US policy is these days. Perhaps that'll become clearer. Let's just hope that the slaughter and the appalling suffering of the Palestinian people stops sooner rather than later, and preferably today. Right, Kamel Hawwash, thank you so much for joining me today on Ascending Order here on Unprecedented TV, and I hope to speak to you again very soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
There he goes. That's Kamel Hawwash. I'm Basil Valentine. I do hope you've enjoyed the program. I'll be back at the same time again tomorrow with another Ascending Order, another great guest, and another edit of the big stories in the world today, so that you don't have to look elsewhere. Take care and have a great day.